Well, thank you for being here today. My name is Miguel Martinez. I'm the MuleSoft practice lead at Mastech Infotrellis. I'm also the COE lead. Today, let's talk about boundless integration, the power of MuleSoft and Salesforce. Okay? Let's get started. Well, first, the forward-looking statement. Basically, this thing says that try before you buy and make sure that all the capabilities you're looking for in the product are actually released and available, and they work. Salesforce, world's #1 CRM. Well, you know that is now extending beyond sales into HR, manufacturing. Every time it's being used in many different ways in different organizations. And why? Because it's a capability and its ability to provide this unified user experiences, fully customizable. So how do you achieve that? Well, it's everything. It's data. Everything is about data. All this data that is coming from different sources, right? When we look at large corporations, we have different MDMs in the back end, data warehouses, application databases, ERPs, you name it. You also have cloud applications, you have SaaS. Again, multiple streams of data. When looking at different integrations, we can see or identify 5 main different patterns. Okay? We have data migration, data coming into Salesforce, data coming out of Salesforce to your backend systems. We have bidirectional sync, correlation. We have an aggregation pattern. Basically, you have different sources you have to combine to provide these unified user experiences in Salesforce. And you have the broadcast pattern. When earlier I saw a presentation when you have a change event in Salesforce, and then you have to broadcast it to backend systems. Salesforce itself has many integration capabilities. As you can see, or hopefully you were able to see some demos earlier today, we have Apex integration services. We have Salesforce Connect, Lighting Platform APIs. If you look at here, all the integration capabilities are around APIs, whether they're SOAP APIs or REST APIs, and also in the backend systems, they need to have APIs. So you're ready to start developing your awesome user experience, and what happens? You find out that in the backend, probably your legacy systems don't have APIs, or your data sources are not allowed to be accessed publicly, right? So you need some public services there. So what do you do next? Well, MuleSoft is the answer, obviously. In this diagram, we see the solution. If we start right to left in your right to left in your screen in the screen, we have a couple of data sources in the back end. We have a legacy ERP, and that probably doesn't have the capability or doesn't provide any REST services. And some of them provide, actually, they provide SOAP services, but these services are not very friendly to use. So what do? We put a system API on top of these services to unlock the data. Then we can access this data, and whether you're doing this aggregation pattern or probably broadcast via APIs. Then these process APIs actually combine your data, probably do some process orchestration, and then enable access through public APIs. These public APIs are the ones that ultimately deliver your data to Salesforce. So if you keep building these reusable APIs and services, you end up with the application network, what we call the application network. This is reusability in action, faster delivery. MuleSoft, I hope you already know this, but MuleSoft Anypoint platform supports the full API lifecycle from design to development, testing, and deployment. It supports hybrid deployments. And also, it provides the ability to manage, monitor, you name it, the full API lifecycle. And we also have hundreds of connectors. We have actually, not hundreds, but over 160 connectors that helps you unlock your backend systems, even mainframes. Not long ago, MuleSoft released a connector that connects to mainframes, databases, you name it, and also provides templates to Anypoint Exchange. These templates are basically sample projects that you can download and reuse and adapt according to the use cases. In addition to building APIs, let's remember how MuleSoft started. MuleSoft started as an ESB. So in addition to help you build APIs and manage these APIs, it has the capability to support different types of integrations, like ETL, file transfers, and you name it, all of them. And in addition to that, out of the box, it provides the ability to perform powerful transformations and data streaming, which is very important, with data web, which is MuleSoft's it's called expression language to do transformations. It also provides the ability to do message routing, internal and external queuing, transactional scope, security, error handling, logging, and many more. But anyway, these are just slides. Let's go to to an actual demo, because this is a developers conference, and I just wanted to show you some code and how things are done in the real world. So in this demo, I'm going to use actually the change data capture event, which is provided in Salesforce. Basically, I'm going to enable an object to do change data capture. And I'm going to capture that message using the streaming API. And then I'm going to deliver that message to a queue, the queue of your choice. In this case, I'm going to use RabbitMQ. And then I'm going to have another subscriber service that is going to pick up the message from the queue and deliver it to the database of your choice. In this case, I'm using MongoDB. So let's quickly look at the demo. I have here the leads object. Before I do the data streaming, first I'm going to do some data migration to my database. I thought it was important to show this one since we're talking about integration patterns. And I have this database with a few fields so I can, I'm going to create a new project, select the runtime environment, and I create my project here. I really wanted you to show you like how this looks like, when you try building your applications. And things are really fast in MuleSoft that a few extra seconds actually seems like an eternity, like you see in this demo. It's as fast as your developers, obviously. So here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with a scheduler. This scheduler is going to let me actually fire an event. In this case, then I'm going to do a query all to Salesforce. I'm going to use the Salesforce connector to do queries. And then after that, I'm going to use the transformer. This is the data wave transformer that is going to let me map the data coming from my Salesforce query to the database. Here, pay attention to this database connector. I'm actually going to start configuring it right now, because this will let me connect to different types of databases. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to configure the Salesforce connector. And you can quickly create a connector configuration. In this case, I'm going to use the username and password. And I'm kind of fast forward here, just to I test my connection. This is a really cool feature, actually. It lets you test the connectivity. So you save some time so you don't experience errors when you're trying to run the code. And then the database also, actually, if you look at the database, I forgot the slides are here. when you look at the database, it lets you select different types of databases, and it automatically lets you select the configuration. In this case, we're using Maven to quickly download the dependencies. So Maven allows you to select the correct dependency. So now our database is pretty much ready to connect to. It was very simple and very quick. So you test the connectivity. And voila, success. So now we're ready to actually start doing some data mapping. Something really cool here is that, well, first, the database is going to let me do a bulk insert, and I can just use simple standard SQL. With the only tweak that these are actually how you insert parameters from the payload. And now we need to configure the Salesforce query. It's just a very simple query, just going to extract a few fields, so just to showcase the capability. And this transformer actually pulls metadata from both sources. Once you configure the sources, you see the metadata. So it's very simple to actually do the data mapping. And again, this is as fast as your developer. So I have an extra field there to actually capture an external ID, which is the Salesforce ID. And then at the end, I have a field in the database called lead source. And in this case, the lead source, I'm just hard-coded and put Salesforce. But you can extend your use cases in case you have different sources of data posting event changes to your Salesforce, to your backend database. You can actually do some routing based on the source. And this is what I'm showing here. I'm throwing a choice router, and I put an expression. Basically here, I'm saying, well, I'm going to look at my payload, and I'm going to look at where the data is coming from, the lead source. And if it's Salesforce, then I want to send it to the database. And if it's not, it just goes to the default. Here, I had to put that 0 because it's inside of an array. So basically, I'm just pulling the first the element in the array, and I check if it's Salesforce, and then I send it to the database. And also, I can use some logger. So MuleSoft provides all these out-of-the-box drag-and-drop components that let you do many things like logging, transformation, routing, you name it. And those loggers actually can connect to other systems. You can have an Elk stack. You can have Splunk, the logger of your choice. It actually uses Log4j in the back end. And here I'm just putting another log to see if the query was successful. Then I adjust the frequency. The scheduler actually lets you run jobs based on cron scheduler, and also on a frequency basis. In this case, I'm just putting one day, just one example, so it's just going to fire the event once. I run my project. Just give it a few seconds. Again, a few seconds seems like an eternity once you're used to speed of delivery. And voila, there's my data going to the database. Success. So I can see the output from the two loggers. And then I can look at my database, and all my records are there. Great. Awesome. So let's go to the next sample. In this example now, I'm going to capture the event. By the way, at this point, you have to have your data capture change event configured in your object. And let's get started. I pick a lead. Okay, great. and then I configure my RabbitMQ. I'm using an exchange and then a queue. My queue doesn't have any messages yet. It's ready. And then here, I just made it faster. I'm just going to walk you through what I did. Basically, I have the reliable acquisition flow. That's what it's called, okay? So basically, I'm going to capture an event, and as soon as I capture it, I'm going to send it to my RabbitMQ. Here, actually, a Salesforce connector provides the ability to actually pick the lead change event. The only issue I had here is that the new documentation says that you have to have like slash data in front of it. So I had to actually manually update it. And also I had to manually set up the payload just to set the structure. But again, every time you encounter something or some capability that for whatever reason is not there yet, you can quickly work around in minutes, not hours, and actually provide the full capability. In this case, I set up a payload, do the structure, and the output application JSON. So I was able to do a transformation on the fly from a stream of data to JSON. And I'm setting up my RabbitMQ. Actually, I'm using a Docker container, so I can quickly just connect to it. And again, test my connection. I just use localhost and the defaults. I test it, and there you go, successful. So now, I guess it's the time to try it. I have my exchange name right there, the AMQ topic. By the way, AMQP is the protocol to connect to RabbitMQ. So I try it, and we'll see our message. Actually, I'm going to quickly skip through this. The next demo is the one that shows how to actually reliably acquire the message. And only because we're running out of time, let it run, actually. Let's see. I save my message. And I just saw it in the logs. But in the next one, you're going to see the flow end to end. So let's take a look. Now in this one, at this point, I had already set up the other side that actually consumes the message from the queue and posts it into the database. And we can see here that when I refresh my database, my lead was updated. And I'm just going to do it one more time, in case you missed it the first time. So I'm going to edit my record. I'm going to put like whatever number, 909, save it. This is going to fire an event in Salesforce. It's going to be picked by MuleSoft, sent to the queue, and then picked by the consumer model and posted in your database. There you go. That's your change. So in this case, again, I used some drag and drop components. I was able to use an AMQP listener, some logger, some transformer. So you don't really have to see this again. So I'm just going to skip to the next slide where what happens when an error occurs. So I really wanted to show you this ability to use transactions. So I'm going to raise an error on purpose. So basically what I'm doing here, I'm picking up the message from RabbitMQ. I'm logging it, transforming it, but before it gets to the database, I'm throwing an error. And if you see the try-scope, that try-scope is the scope that lets me, it's like a try-catch flow, but also it supports transactions. So I'm just going to run this quickly, just to show you how it works. I'm creating some random error right there, but it might as well be some database connectivity error, some query issue or something. And what's going to happen is that it's going to roll back the message. And it can get pretty robust, actually. Right now, I'm just using like the default values for each connector, but you can really have very robust use cases where you can route message based on errors. You can do, pretty much anything that you need to support your use case. So what I'm seeing here is like the error. Um, it's raising the error. So in this case, it just keeps retrying. So I'm just going to stop it. But again, MuleSoft provides the capability to actually do some routing based on that, and your error was never picked up in this case. And again, it can get more complex. You can cache that error. You can specify the number of retries. Based on the number of retries, you can send it to a log message, your logging framework, or basically you can just send it to a dead letter queue. So I hope you find some of these capabilities useful, and I really want to encourage you to go ahead and try them. I mean, we're developers. We always love to learn new things. And please visit the MuleSoft website, developer.mulesoft.com, and start your free trial. You can also join the MuleSoft community. Actually, I'm one of the MuleSoft ambassadors, and I love giving back to the community. Now I'm a trailblazer now. So you can visit the online training, and you can check out the trailhead. So thank you so much.